Good evening, viewers, and welcome to tonight's regional news. We begin with news from Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidadian Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has ordered more stringent restrictions in a desperate attempt to limit the movement of citizens and head off a catastrophic increase in the number of COVID-positive cases. Citizens were told on Monday during a press conference that in as little as 7 days, the bed space capacity to care for sick COVID-positive patients could run out, given the number of cases being admitted daily. Rowley said if there was no intervention now, it would result in the economic destruction of the country. Rowley said since last Thursday, government had been monitoring the situation on all fronts and anticipating that the actions taken would have certain effects. He said the authorities have also been analyzing the response of the population. And now for some news from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. One of the scientists monitoring the La Soufriere volcano said Monday that while there has been little seismic activity at the volcano in recent days, I quote, "We are not ready to say that the volcano has gone back to sleep as yet," end of quote. Speaking on the state-owned NBC radio, Roderick Stewart said there has been no signs of a reactivation of the volcano. The latest bulletin issued by the Seismic Research Center of the University of the West Indies, seismic activity at La Soufriere has remained low since the tremor associated with the explosion and ash venting on April 22. Stewart, who appeared on the radio program with Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, said, I quote, "Fingers crossed," end of quote. He is hoping that the volcano would remain quiet and we would start getting back to normal. And now for some news from Antigua and Barbuda. Prime Minister of Antigua Gadsden Brong has warned of the possibility of implementing a mandatory vaccination program in Antigua and Barbuda as he criticized persons who were encouraging others to not participate in the National Inoculation Initiative aimed at curbing the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. I quote, "This is not a threat," end of quote, Brong said on his weekend radio program, noting that the pandemic has had a tremendous impact on the socio-economic development of the island since the first case was diagnosed last March. He said that he was also disappointed that persons who are aspiring to become leaders in this country were aiding and abating persons not to take the vaccine in a bid to make his administration look bad. He told radio listeners that refusal to get vaccinated are delaying herd immunity, insisting, I quote, "We are putting an entire population at risk," end of quote. Antigua and Barbuda has set a target of 70% of its population to be vaccinated in order to get herd immunity, and Brown said during the vaccination exercise last week, just over 100 people took advantage of the program. And finally, 20 people were killed, including children, and 49 were hospitalized when a railway overpass collapsed onto a busy road in Mexico City on Monday night. Rescue efforts for potential survivors were paused shortly after the accident, authorities said, because of the risk that more of the metro overpass and train cars could slam down onto the road. The Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum said the rescue had been suspended because the train is very weak. A crane transported to the site was working to stabilize the train carriages so rescuers could resume their search to see, I quote, "if there are more people inside the train car," end of quote, she said. Sheinbaum said a person trapped in their car underneath the rumble had been rescued alive and was taken to the hospital. 7 of the people transported to the hospital were in, I quote, "grave condition," end of quote, and undergoing surgery, she said. She earlier said a total of around 70 people had been injured. This is the deadliest incident in decades in the city's metro system, one of the busiest in the world. And that is all for your regional news. Thank you for joining.